It started with an envelope, plain, cream-colored with no return address. Just a name in shaky handwriting across the front. Lena Carter. That was her. She stared at it for a long time, her thumb tracing the edge of the paper, heart thudding like a warning drum in her chest. But before I tell you what was inside that envelope, and how it changed everything, I need you to do one thing. Tap that like button, subscribe, and share this story with someone who loves a good mystery. Trust me, you're going to want someone else to talk to when this one's over. Now, let's go back to the beginning. There was something off about the whole thing. No postmark. No sender. No clue where it had come from. But what chilled her more than anything else was the line written in red ink just beneath her name. Do not open until everything falls apart. Lena almost laughed. What did that even mean? Things had already fallen apart. She was 3 months behind on rent. Her power had been cut off for the second time that year. And her 8-year-old son Micah had started asking why the fridge was always empty. So she did what any mother on the edge would do. She shoved the letter into the junk drawer and forgot about it. For 3 days. And then everything began to unravel. It started with a single knock at the door. A man in a gray jacket. And the worst news she could have imagined. The man at the door wore a badge clipped to his belt. His face was tight with sympathy, the kind that made Lena's stomach twist before he even said a word. "Miss Carter?" he asked gently. She nodded, already clutching the edge of the door. "I'm Officer Delaney. I'm here about your sister. Elise." The name hit like ice water. Lena hadn't seen Elise in over a year, not since the argument. The one they'd both pretended would fix itself in time. She hadn't even known Elise was back in town. "I'm sorry," he said. "There was an accident this morning. A hit and run. She didn't make it." The world tilted. The hallway blurred. And all Lena could think was, we never made up. She hadn't spoken to her only sibling in 14 months. And now there would be no apology. No conversation. Just silence, sealed and permanent. As Officer Delaney handed her a personal effects bag, something slipped from the top. An envelope, weathered and creased, with handwriting that made her chest seize. It was addressed to her. But it wasn't Elise's handwriting. It was hers. In her own handwriting. And the date in the corner? September 18th, 2044. Lena stared at the envelope like it might catch fire in her hands. 2044? That was 19 years from now. And yet, there it was, her own handwriting, unmistakable, looping and rushed like it always was when she was upset. The letters tilted just slightly to the right, the same way they had since high school. She barely heard Officer Delaney say a few more polite condolences before excusing himself. The door clicked shut behind him, but Lena remained frozen, eyes locked on the envelope. Her mind spun with possibilities. A prank? Some kind of elaborate hoax? But who would go this far? And why? Micah's small voice called from the living room. "Mom? Is everything okay?" Lena slipped the envelope back into the personal effects bag and shoved it under a pile of mail. She didn't want him to see her like this. "Not today. I'm fine, baby. Just tired," she said, her voice catching. Later that night, after she tucked him into bed and stood for too long staring at the darkened street outside their window, Lena returned to the envelope. She pulled it out, her fingers trembling. And this time she opened it. Inside there was only one page. Typed, short, and terrifying. The letter read, "Lena, if you're reading this, it means the first crack has already formed. You think it's Elise's death, but it's not. That was just the trigger. The unraveling starts tomorrow. You'll want to grieve. You won't have time. Listen carefully. Take Micah and leave the city before Friday. Don't trust anyone who offers help, no matter how familiar they seem. That includes people from your past. Especially them. Go to the place Mom used to take us when things got bad. You know the one. Pack light. Leave your phone behind. Do not try to fix anything. You'll be tempted. Don't. They're watching. And if you ignore this, Micah dies. You have 3 days. Lena dropped the page. Her heart pounded so loudly she could hear it in her ears. The room felt too quiet, like the moment before a storm hits. The stillness that warned of something terrible just beyond the horizon. She grabbed the letter again, scanning the words, hoping she'd misread something. But it was all still there. The warning. The countdown. The mention of Micah dying. And the part that chilled her blood the most. They're watching. Lena didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed with her eyes wide open, staring at the cracked ceiling, the letter clutched in one hand under the blanket like some kind of talisman, or curse. He tried to reason with herself. It had to be a sick joke. Maybe someone had hacked an old handwriting sample, printed the note and planted it. But how would they have known about Micah? And that line, "The place Mom used to take us," how could anyone else have known about the lake house? It wasn't even a house, not really. Just an old A-frame cabin on the edge of Ashridge Lake. Their mother used to drive them there during the worst fights with their dad. No phones. No TV. Just trees, silence, and the sound of water slapping against the dock. Lena hadn't thought about that place in years. She sat up slowly, rubbing her temples. If this was some kind of prank, it was a cruel one. But if it wasn't? She looked at the letter again. 3 days. Today was Tuesday. She had until Friday. And tomorrow, the letter said, the unraveling would begin. The next morning the world looked the same. Sunlight spilled through the kitchen window, warm and golden, landing on the chipped counter where Lena poured cereal into Micah's bowl. He kicked his feet beneath the table, humming softly, blissfully unaware of the dread knotting in his mother's chest. "Mom, can we get those waffles again? The cinnamon ones?" he asked between bites. Lena tried to smile. "We'll see, baby." She didn't mention the envelope. Or the letter. Or the fact that she'd woken up 5 times in the night to make sure he was still breathing. At 8 a.m. the power cut out. Lena froze, cereal box still in her hand. A beat later Micah's hum stopped. "Again," he groaned. "But the fridge. Mom, my switch was charging." Lena forced a calm voice. "It's okay, honey. I'll check the fuse box." But she already knew it wasn't the fuse. An hour later her landlord banged on the door hard. "Agri, you're 2 months behind. I need the rent by Friday or you're out. No extensions." Friday. Of course. It was happening already. Just like the letter said. The world around her was starting to come undone, piece by piece. And this was only day 1. By noon, Lena couldn't pretend anymore. The letter hadn't been a prank. It hadn't been paranoia. Things were happening, too fast, too precisely, too personal. She sat in the living room with the letter unfolded on the table, tracing the typed words with a shaking finger. Take Micah and leave the city before Friday. But where could she even go? The lake house had been abandoned for years. The plumbing barely worked, and last she heard, the road in was washed out. Besides, what if this whole thing really was just some elaborate sick joke? She'd lose what little she had left, running from shadows. And yet, her gut wouldn't let it go. Micah padded into the room, dragging his blanket and rubbing his eyes. "Mom? Who are you talking to?" Lena blinked. "What?" He pointed. "Just now. In the hallway." Her breath caught. "I wasn't talking to anyone." Micah frowned, confused. "There was a man. He said not to be scared. And that you'd understand soon." Lena stood so fast the chair scraped loud across the floor. She rushed to the hallway. Dead quiet. But on the floor by the front door sat another envelope. No address. Just her name. This envelope was darker than the last, aged like it had been soaked and dried several times. The paper felt brittle, like something ancient that might disintegrate if she opened it too fast. Written in the same unmistakable handwriting were the words. "Do not let him answer the phone." No salutation. No explanation. Just that one sentence. Lena turned it over. No stamp, no seal, no signature. But the moment she read those words, her phone started ringing. She jumped. Micah flinched behind her. The screen lit up with a number she didn't recognize. 404-11x-98 times 1. Not a number. Not really. It looked almost like a code. She grabbed the phone and slammed her finger on the red button, ending the call. Her heart thundered in her ears. Micah tugged her sleeve. "Who was it?" "No one," Lena whispered, tossing the phone on the couch like it was cursed. "It's fine. Just don't answer the phone, okay? Ever. Not until I say." Micah's eyes widened. "Is it the man from the hallway?" Lena stiffened. She hadn't told him about the envelope. Or the message. "How do you know it was a man?" she asked slowly. He looked up at her and said, "Because he had your voice." Lena felt the air leave her lungs. "My voice?" she repeated, but her throat had gone dry. Micah nodded casually, like it wasn't strange. Like it wasn't terrifying. "Yeah. Like when you talk to Grandma on the phone. Nice but kind of tired. Except he wasn't on the phone. Lena knelt beside him, gripping his small shoulders gently. Sweetheart, are you sure you saw someone? Are you sure you heard him speak? Micah's face scrunched, thoughtful. He said, tell her to trust what she already knows. Then he smiled and walked away. Her skin prickled. That phrase. It felt like something only she would say. Something she'd said once to Elise years ago when they were teenagers sneaking out and Elise got scared. You already know what's right. Trust that. This wasn't a coincidence. The second envelope. The warning. The call. The strange man with her voice. This wasn't about some future fantasy. Someone, or something, was crossing into now. And it was watching them. She stood shaking. They had to leave. No. She grabbed a duffel bag from the closet and threw it open on the couch. No more waiting. Whatever was coming, it had already begun. And Lena wasn't going to let it take her son. By dusk the bag was packed. Just the essentials. Warm clothes, canned food, water bottles, a flashlight, and the old Polaroid of her, Elise and Micah at the lake the last summer before their mother died. Lena stared at the photo a long time before slipping it between two shirts. She didn't bother calling anyone. The letter had made that clear. Don't trust anyone who offers help. That included friends, neighbors, even family. Anyone could be them. Whoever they were. Micah sat on the floor, hugging his favorite stuffed rabbit, quiet but watching her with solemn eyes. Too quiet for an 8-year-old. Are we going on a trip? He finally asked. Lena forced a smile as she zipped the bag. Yeah, baby. Just us. Like when you were little. He blinked. Am I in danger? Her hand froze on the zipper. How could he know to ask that? She kneeled again, brushing a curl from his forehead. I won't let anything happen to you. Ever. Okay. He nodded slowly. The moment stretched. Then the front porch light flickered. Once, twice, then died completely. The apartment went dark. And a shadow moved across the hallway window. Someone was out there. Watching. Lena's breath caught. She reached behind the couch and flicked off the last lamp still glowing in the corner. Darkness swallowed the room. Micah crawled to her side without a word, clutching her arm tightly. The shadow outside shifted again. Slow, deliberate, like someone waiting to be seen. Lena crept toward the window, careful not to let her feet squeak on the floorboards. She peeked between the blinds. A man stood across the street beneath the streetlight, too far to make out clearly, but his outline was still. Too still. As if he wasn't breathing. She stepped back. He was holding something in his hand. An envelope. Another one. She grabbed the duffel bag and pulled Micah close. We're leaving now. Quietly. He nodded, understanding too much for his age. They slipped out the back door, down the rusted fire escape. Lena's heart thundered with every step, convinced the man would suddenly appear at the bottom or worse, already be waiting in the alley. But it was empty. They darted across the lot, Lena gripping Micah's hand so tightly he winced. She loosened her grip just enough. In the distance the man hadn't moved. But when she looked back a second time, he was gone. They didn't stop moving. Lena didn't own a car. Hers had been repossessed last winter. But she remembered an old friend who'd once owed her a favor. She didn't call, didn't knock. Just found the spare key under the brick behind his garage and took the beat-up station wagon parked beside the trash bins. She told herself he'd understand. They drove for 2 hours without speaking, Micah curled in the passenger seat, watching the trees blur past in the dying light. Lena kept checking the rearview mirror, heart spiking at every pair of headlights that followed too long. By the time they reached the outskirts of Woodmere, the tiny town near Ashridge Lake, it was past 10 p.m. and fog had begun to settle over the road in thick patches. Micah had fallen asleep. His breathing was soft and steady. The quiet made her feel more alone than ever. Then the radio turned on by itself. No hands. No touch. Static filled the car. And through the fuzz, a voice whispered, "You shouldn't have left." Lena slammed her palm against the power button, but the voice continued. "You've seen what happens. You know how it ends. You can't outrun yourself." And just like that, the engine died. The car coasted to a dead stop on the side of a narrow, winding road, swallowed by trees. The headlights flickered once, then faded to black. Lena sat frozen behind the wheel, her hands trembling, the voice still ringing in her head. "You can't outrun yourself." She turned the key, once, twice again. Nothing. The dashboard lights didn't even blink. It was as if the car had been gutted from the inside out. Like it had never had a battery to begin with. Micah stirred beside her, rubbing his eyes. "Why are we stopping?" Lena forced calm into her voice. "Just car trouble, baby. We're close." She popped the glove box, searching for a flashlight. Instead, she found something that hadn't been there before. Something impossible. Another envelope. Her name on the front. Inside one line. "He's waking up." She stared at the words, her throat dry, her fingers cold. Then slowly turned to look at Micah. He was staring straight ahead now, wide-eyed, unblinking. "Micah?" she whispered. He didn't respond. Just kept staring at the tree-line. Then he whispered something so soft, so strange she barely caught it. "They're not trees." "Not really." And in the distance the branches began to move. Lena's breath caught as she followed Micah's gaze. The trees weren't swaying, they were shifting. Not in the wind but against it. Their trunks leaned and bent subtly, like skeletal figures stretching after a long sleep. A sound rose from the forest, deep and low, like the groan of something ancient turning beneath the earth. Micah gripped her hand suddenly, eyes still locked on the woods. "He knows where we are now," he said quietly. Lena turned to him, heart hammering. "Micah, who's he?" But he just shook his head as if he didn't fully understand the answer himself. Or was afraid to say it. A dull, mechanical click echoed behind them. The car's radio came alive again. This time not with static. A clear voice, calm, female, her own voice. "You're not off course. This was always the road. Keep moving. Whatever you do, don't let him speak through Micah again." The engine roared to life on its own. Lena gasped and threw the car into gear. As the vehicle peeled down the road, headlights cutting through the mist, she dared one final glance in the rearview mirror. And there, standing just behind the last tree, was her mother. Smiling. Lena's blood ran cold. It couldn't be her. Her mother had died when Lena was barely 20, an aneurysm in her sleep. Peaceful. Final. But the woman standing at the forest's edge looked exactly like her, down to the faded pink sweater she used to wear when the power went out in winter. Micah didn't look back. He just whispered, "Don't stop." "Please, Mom. Don't stop." Lena gripped the wheel tighter. "I won't." They drove in silence for the next 10 minutes, the mist thickening, swallowing the road signs and the world around them. Lena kept her eyes forward, half expecting another figure to appear in the fog. Elise, maybe. Or herself. Finally, the trees parted. Ashridge Lake emerged, still and black under the moonlight, a mirror of glass stretching wide and quiet. At its far edge sat the old A-frame cabin, warped by time and half swallowed by ivy. Lena parked the car near the overgrown path, cutting the headlights. Micah stared at the cabin as if it were something sacred. "I remember this place," he said softly. "But I've never been here, have I?" Lena's skin prickled. "No," she whispered. "Not yet." But somehow he had. The cabin door creaked open with a sound that echoed too far for its size, like the woods themselves were listening. Dust swirled in the moonlight as they stepped inside. The air was thick with time and memory. The furniture was still there. The crooked armchair, the moth-eaten couch, the cracked coffee table where she and Elise used to play cards while their mother sang in the kitchen. Micah wandered silently to the fireplace and crouched beside it. "There's something under here," he said, tapping the hearthstone with his small fist. "It's hollow." Lena moved to him, heart thudding. He was right. One of the stones gave way beneath her touch. Beneath it, a compartment, and inside, an envelope. But not just any envelope. This one was burned around the edges, its contents partially blackened, like it had barely survived a fire. He pulled out the letter. Only half of it was legible. "It begins when the first death feels personal." That's the trick. You think it's about grief. But it's about awakening. He can only enter if invited through memory. He uses you to reach him. Lena read the last line aloud, barely a whisper. "Do not let yourself remember the wrong things." Micah stared at her, a strange stillness coming over his face. Then slowly he said, "Do you remember the night you dropped me off at Elise's and didn't come back?" Lena froze. "What?" Micah blinked as if waking from a dream. "Never mind. I don't know why I said that. But Lena did. That night hadn't happened, yet. In her bones she felt it. Time was fraying. Moments bleeding backward. Forward. Memories turning into maps that someone, or something, was trying to use. She folded the half-burned letter, slipping it into her coat pocket. Then she looked at Micah and said carefully, "You can't trust your memories right now, okay? Not even the ones that feel real." Micah nodded, though confusion darkened his face. A gust of wind rattled the windows. The temperature inside the cabin dropped. The air felt thick like walking through water. Then came a sound that turned Lena's blood to ice. It was her voice, her own voice, coming from the back room, calling Micah's name. "Come here, baby," it cooed sweetly. "Mama's just tired. Come sit with me." Micah stood eyes wide. "She sounds like you." Lena grabbed his hand hard. "That's not me," she whispered. "Don't you dare go in there." The voice continued, soft and melodic, familiar, comforting, deadly. "Micah, it's okay now. You can rest." Lena pressed her back against the doorframe, blocking the hallway to the back room. Micah trembled beside her, his hand warm and small in hers. "She sounds exactly like you," he whispered. "But sadder." Lena didn't dare look away from the hallway. "That's not sadness, baby. That's what it uses to get inside." The voice turned brittle, sharp. "Lena, let me speak to him. He's already listening." Something began scratching at the inside of the walls. Slow at first, then frantic like claws on plaster. Dust rained from the ceiling. The temperature dropped again, sharp as a blade. Micah whimpered. From inside her coat pocket, the burned letter grew hot against her chest. He pulled it out. The ash along the edges crumbled, revealing a final fragment that hadn't been there before. Just 4 words. "It ends with silence." Lena looked down at Micah. "No matter what happens, don't speak. Don't answer. Not even to me, okay?" He nodded, eyes wide with fear, but understanding too. Then the back room door began to open. And for the first time they saw what had been pretending to be her. It stepped through the doorway with the sound of cracking wood and bending time. A mirror. A near-perfect copy of Lena. Same face, same hair, same tired eyes. But wrong. Subtly, unmistakably wrong. The smile stretched too wide. The eyes didn't blink. And where Lena had fear, love, and fury in her gaze, this thing had nothing. It tilted its head at Micah. "Oh, sweetheart," it said in her voice. "She can't protect you. He never could. You remember, don't you? The night she left you alone. The cold. The crying." Micah's lips trembled. Lena dropped to her knees, clutching his face gently, forcing him to look only at her. "Don't listen. It lies through memory." The thing moved closer. "You already belong to me," it whispered. "You always have. That's why you dream of drowning. That's why you hear me even now." Lena stood, stepping in front of Micah. "I know what you are," she said, voice shaking but steady. The thing smiled wider. "And you remember who you had to become to survive me." Then it began to change. Its face flickered. Elise. Their mother. Herself. Rapidly shifting through every version of Lena she had buried, hated, lost. And then it lunged. It hit her like ice and fire all at once. The thing's touch wasn't physical, it was inside. It cracked through her mind, digging into grief and guilt like fingers into wet clay. Elise's lifeless eyes. The rent notice. Micah's tiny voice asking why she always cried at night. It knew everything. She fell to her knees, clutching her head as memories twisted and warped, turning into jagged weapons. The thing leaned close, whispering like an echo inside her skull. "You were always the doorway. Not him. You." Micah screamed. But not in fear, in defiance. He didn't speak. Instead, he shoved the half-burned letter into the fireplace and struck a match with shaking hands. Flame roared to life. The smoke curled unnaturally, climbing the walls, forming symbols that pulsed like heartbeats. The thing reeled back. Lena felt it too. A rupture, like something ancient and wrong was being torn from the room. Her thoughts cleared for the first time in days. The whispers faded. Then came silence. Perfect, still, final silence. The thing screamed, but no sound came. And then it was gone. Lena pulled Micah into her arms, sobbing into his hair. They were alone again. But Lena knew the truth now. It had never come from the future. It had always come from her.